Hello, this is Anthony. Let's walk and talk. So today we're going to talk about how on your spiritual journey you will run into different aspects that you'll realize on the journey are still trapped in either your body, in the memory of your body, or in your subconscious. And we're going to talk about this somewhat from the psychological aspect, although clearly I can give you the spiritual and the scientific meanings of these things as well. But the reason we're going to talk about the psychological as well as the spiritual aspect is because it's important to understand how even as you begin to grow, evolve, and change, sometimes you don't know that these things are even going to come up until they come up. And I'm going to give you personal examples of this. Now, I started to do this video earlier, and it's very interesting how the universe works, because as I started to do the video and I got into it, this gentleman was walking his dog, his little puppy, and this puppy saw me from almost across the park, came running to me, wanted to come up, he wanted to play, so I pet him a little bit, and then there he is now. Whew. And as I started to interact with him, he kept following me all through the park. So I had to take time to pet him. But the reason that I bring this up is because as I started to do the video, I forgot to mention a very important aspect of this discussion, which is the study done by, I can't remember his first name, but the last name is Pavlov. And when I say Pavlov, most of you are going to know what I'm talking about. The study of Pavlov's dog, where essentially this person was trying to understand how things work. So he essentially trained a dog that every time the dog heard the bell, the dog would get fed. And as he began to continue his experiment and studies of this, what he noticed was at some point, as he rang the bell, even though he didn't feed the dog would begin to salivate and act like it was going to be fed. You see, and it's important to understand this because this is exactly the same type of programming that not only gets locked into the subconscious, but also gets locked into the body. When you're on this journey and you take the healing aspect and you evolve and you change and you become someone different, what happens is sometimes you don't even know that certain things have been resolved until they come up. What do I mean by that? Well, here I'm going to give you an example. So the former version of me at one point was married, and after a long period of time, as in all relationships, sometimes, especially when two people are unhealed, you begin to have issues in the relationship. And in that, I lived in a house where the entertainment area, like where the TV set was and such, was above the garage door. And the problem is that every time my partner would come home and I knew the partner wasn't going to be in a good mood, I might be watching a program or sitting there and I would hear the garage door, and immediately I would get that feeling of dread, that feeling of, oh boy, here we go. And as I've gone through this journey, and as I've grown and evolved, I thought I had released all of those aspects of that. However, I noticed that these things were not done, especially in the body. So let's talk about this. I was in an Airbnb as I was waiting for the next aspect of my journey, and it just turned out that, again, the entertainment area was in ear range of the garage door. I had no idea until one afternoon I was sitting there and I was, I was watching a program on YouTube, and the garage door turned on and I could hear it. And immediately, I didn't think anything of it, but my body did. Immediately, my body suddenly got the same feeling as, 15 years earlier, where the partner was coming home, and I knew that meant there was going to be, that it was going to be a dreadful experience. How about that? That there would be conflict. And I noticed that, and I thought, wow, I didn't even realize that was even in my body. Remember, essentially, you are three parts. You are your soul, you are your body, and you are your mind. You are a three-part being, essentially. And even though you may connect with your soul, even though you may even work through a lot of the unconscious and subconscious programming to put yourself in a more empowered state, you have to also understand that your body is going to retain the memory of these traumas as well. And so these things have to be released from your body. Now, people are going to say, that's a little woo-woo. However, I've explained in the past how even going to psychologists, when you start to understand that you are trying to logically and analytically deal with a trauma, for me, EMDR allowed me to it was a modality that allowed me to not only deal with it, but also release the energy that I was carrying from that event from my body. Now, how does that appear? Well, essentially what happens is this energy is stored in terms of unresolved emotions. And what EMDR did was it allowed me in those moments to express those unresolved emotions. And when that happened, it's like the trauma was completely released. However, I didn't view this experience with the garage door as something that needed to be purged until I was sitting in a place where essentially it was like being in the past, where hearing the garage door immediately triggered my body into a fight or flight mode, and I could sit back and observe it and in my mind think, wow, isn't this interesting? I didn't know that was there. So it's important to understand these things because, again, even as you continue to grow and evolve, sometimes you don't even know what's still in there that's affecting you. Sometimes you don't even know what aspect is affecting you until you sit back and the trigger pops up and you are able to observe the trigger and then understand what's actually happening. Now, I think it's important to understand that some traumas like that, which you could say is a trauma, I'm not sure that that a resolution is necessary, but it allowed me to see and then also kind of comfort myself and my body to say, this time has passed. It no longer exists, and it can no longer affect you in the present moment. Now, the science behind this is that your brain doesn't know the difference. You see, we've talked about the brain as a piece of technology. It's just a processor. And what happens is all of the emotions, the senses that you have, feed that processor. Science is already starting to show that even the past isn't really the past. You don't really remember the past, you remember the memory of the past. I know it's going to sound weird, but this is what they're starting to understand about how the human body works. You see, in your mind you can have a memory, but that memory, every time you remember it, is locking you into a moment in time that you are re-remembering. And so, as I've tried to explain to people in the past, as you understand this, you essentially can change your past. Why? Because as you deal with the trauma, you change the emotion that is released of the past, and then the past begins to change and evolve in the way that you remember it, until you can choose to no longer even just have the memory. In fact, for me, some of these traumatic memories that I've had really now are just like I watched the movie. There isn't any kind of any emotional attachment to what occurred, but I can talk about these things, and there's no emotion. No emotion comes up because it's just like essentially watching a movie and just telling someone what you saw in the movie. And this is how you begin to change and evolve your life to match what you desire to experience in your life. You see, these things are going to be trapped. These things are going to come up. You choose to continue to have these remembrances of memories, and you choose to allow the emotional aspect. But the reason that this is happening is because you're not releasing the emotion. You're not releasing the energy of the emotion that's trapped within your body. You can retrain the subconscious, but you also have to retrain the nervous system. And when you begin to understand that retraining the nervous system, a lot of time, this is the part of the solitude on the journey. It's not just for your mind, it's for your body. Because what happens is you can put yourself in a state where you are not experiencing the stress and the trauma of the past. And in doing so, you reset yourself. But what say you? Do you think that, do you understand the concept of essentially the pain body? Do you understand the concept of subconscious? Do you understand how, again, through science, psychology, and spirituality, these things are all aligned? And how, by understanding these things, you can help yourself to grow and evolve, and you can change the past to create the most beautiful present. As always, if you enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm truly grateful. And until I talk to you again, peace, love, light. Hope you have the most amazing day.